And so that energy and that power is hard to find, but it certainly ensures that, you're working with the right team, with the right dynamics, and they will most certainly achieve excellence.
Recalls to me exactly the army. So working with my gym with a lot of people that comes from the army, this is exactly what a soldier look like. The right people with the right mindset. Is this something that you have observed in these 12 unicorns that you and your team have worked with?
Absolutely, yeah. I would say yes, for the most part. I mean, building a culture of excellence, I think is absolutely, I'd say, very much key. The other thing that I would mention is leveraging AI to solve real world problems is part of our DNA.
Hello, digital warriors, and welcome back to the Forge of Unicorns podcast. Today is a pleasure having with us Meir Rabkin. Meir is not the common private equity guy. It's not the common one because with Blue Vision Capitals and his team, Meir founded not one, not two, but 12 unicorns in the last 5 years. And so, with Meir today, we are here to understand which is the recipe, the secret sauce that Meir and his team are using to identify these unicorns and how to nurture them, because here we have an amazing case study. Meir, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Michelle. Pleasure is likewise.
Good. And I am really amazed of today's discussion because, man, we have baked 12 startups from early seeds to unicorns. It's impressive. Your numbers are amazing. And this is only what I've achieved the unicorn status. But I know, because we have discussed even before in our session to prepare the podcast, that we have a lot of other companies that are in hypergrowth. Are you a bodybuilder, man? What do you do with these companies?
Yes. So first of all, Michelle, yeah, pleasure to have to be on your podcast this morning. Yeah, so just to be clear, in our team's track record, have about 12 unicorns that we're very proud of and happy to share kind of some of these learnings and what we look for. But naturally, I mean, we need to also establish the fact that venture is a game of outliers, and so we are looking for finding paths to create profitability, not necessarily in equilibrium, but in disequilibrium, right? So really spending a lot of time to find founders that have this obsessive drive, that what I like to call relentless execution. And it is something that I would say is very hard to find, right? So there needs to be something that we are, I'd say something that is a disruptive, innovative, that is really truly breakthrough. They're not just trying to repeat something and create something in market, but sometimes there is a way to also copy what is the word copy, but replicate what's currently in market. But it's not just being opportunistic in the business, but very much, mission driven. And the other thing is also like looking for businesses that are in massive markets, right? So the TAM needs to be absolutely massive. We need to see that there is, let's say, market tailwind, macroeconomic tailwinds in the space that they're into. We like to see contrarian insights, right? So being able to build something that everybody thinks is unbuildable, right? And where we come in typically is early traction, right? So I'd say it's very hard to kind of find unicorns if you're investing at the pre-revenue stage. But once where we like to come in is when there is some commercial traction that has been proven. They're kind of past that J curve at the beginning of that hockey stick, and kind of that entry point is, I would say, certainly our sweet spot. And then the last is really understanding the moat, right? What is the moat? What is it something that they're building that is impenetrable, that is undeniable, that is defensible? Because markets move fast, competitive landscape can move fast, but really understanding why are they going to be, the next Facebook, the next Google, is something that we spend a lot of time looking at. And, if I, for example, look at the last company that we invested in, it's not a unicorn just yet, but the founding team have all come from, past unicorn tech founders, right? They've all really essentially worked for very large companies like Meta, like Netflix, like Lyft. And so sometimes you see an interesting formula where people who have gone through that journey, who've had that experience, kind of get together and build something that is truly unique and truly breakthrough. And it's kind of this repeatable process. So that's also something that we found has worked quite well for us.
So this last start that you are investing in is something that is intriguing me because you have pulled into the room some big players here. So if I right understood, in the last startup that you are investing in the team, in the core leadership, you have big players that are coming from unicorns in IT. And here we are exactly to describe and find with you as investor and also the other guest, which is the secret formula to have a more engineeristic approach around creating unicorns in the IT field. That is a really risky market because the success ratio is really low. So the question that I have for you is pretty simple. Have you identified systemic gaps to measure engineering excellence so that they can limit the scalability of companies that you have in your portfolio? Or is really a human thing? So you have experts that they know what to do, like this expert in the startup that you were discussing. Which is the formula that are you using?
Listen, if I would say that, again, in a business adventure, which is a business of outliers, you cannot have, let's say, a similar repeatable process for every single startup because there always are exceptions. So I want to preface by saying that, but we certainly do have a very thorough and rigorous process when we look at businesses, and we have an 8-step checklist process essentially, where we do look very carefully at various metrics for us to try to bring it down to a science and really work with a scorecard to see which one scores and how, right? So we spend a lot of time looking at the business model, to understand how scalable it is and how realistic are the assumptions. Of course, when you meet founders, you'll see projections to the moon, right? So really trying to bring that back to earth and really understand how realistic it is given comparables from other competitors. How are the margins? How is the capex? How is the cash runway? So for us, it's really important, and we have, as I mentioned, a scoring mechanism for different aspects of the business model to see where they score. Then we spend a lot of time on the team. For us, it's important to see that there's a high caliber management. Like we really, with I'd say very strong technical industry knowledge. So you're talking about technical expertise and talent. I mean, that's of course extremely important. But above and beyond the knowledge, because we have found situations where you have brilliant minds, very strongest technical experts, but the life of a startup is facing headwinds, facing obstacles, curveballs, and we want to understand what are they going to do when they face these curveballs, and how are they going to handle adversity? Are they going to be able to walk through fire and make it to the finish line no matter what, or are they going to give up and go back working at some IT job with a nice cushy salary, right? And that's okay too. I mean, there's no right or wrong here, but what we really want to find are kind of those really strong outliers, right? Almost those types of founders that really just want to prove a point to prove a point, right? So, and we've seen many examples of these, and so really spending a lot of time with the team, on the team, speaking to references that have worked with them in the past. I mean, to us, it's really, really important to find that level of high caliber that is really important. So once we've established the business model and the team, the third then is the product and service, right? So we want to understand the technology, and that's really where we want to see is a product of a strong value proposition to clients. Are they building something where there's actually a market pull? So we want to see a demonstrated proof of concept or a pilot. We want to see a certain level of customer traction, and that's where we do customer calls, and we actually speak to customers that are using the product, saying, "What do you like? What do you not like? What could be improved?" And if a competitor comes in offering something similar, would you do the switch at a lower price or not? So we really want to take jabs at all angles to really ensure that this is something that is extremely solid. The technology does need to be disruptive. There needs to be breakthrough. It needs to be patented typically or protected. Again, we really want to see the moat. As mentioned earlier, the market needs to be at least $1 billion in TAM. We want favorable regulatory dynamics, and an established go-to-market strategy with a targeted customer base. The last thing we look at is really the competition, how unique and differentiated the offering is compared to the competition, and to us doing a lot of knowledge on the competitive landscape. And the last but not least is the exit, right? So what is the exit? What is the duration? The game of venture, really important to mention. It's great to find these unicorns and it's great to have these amazing exits. But the question is, in how much time are you going to achieve those exits? Because if you're going to get a 4x return in 5 years, it's a totally different picture than getting a 4x return in 10 years, right? You've literally cut your IRR in half. So time is the biggest enemy for IRR. So really trying to model that out and get a good understanding around that, I think is really key. And whether it'll be an IPO or an M&A or another strategic exit. So as you could tell, Michele, a very long and winded answer to your question on how we look for unicorns. But for us, obviously, it's a massive exercise, and that's why we have a team in place that does this types of diligence and research, because we are absolutely looking for outliers. So once we've checked all these boxes and we've built in a scoring mechanism, it allows us to some degree, bring down this unicorn search to a certain science. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. But it gets us closer to our targets and our goals, and we're proud of that.
I love what you just say. It's not perfect. It's the science. We can still improve because it's the way our science is built. But indeed, you are describing a pretty interesting picture because you and your team are having a diligence in doing an assessment of the organization that is pretty remarkable. And I remember that when my team was doing the research about you as a guest in the podcast, a message was clearly stuck in my head from your headliner. We hunt for unicorns. And in my mind was beginning the question, okay, how you hunt for unicorns? I want to understand this. This is the right guest in my podcast. And I guess we are jumping into the point now. I see how you and your team are like a surgeon doctor doing the surgery on a pitch. So the founder is coming with a beautiful pitch. Let's do the surgery to get to the bare bone of their proposal. And you go also beyond it because you have provided me something that is not something common that I have found with other investors. So you do also a due diligence on the tech, not only on the financial and marketing aspect, but also on the behavior of the team. That is something beautiful. Because I have a strong belief after years of studying behavioral psychology and social engineering that the culture of people is influence of how we behave in a social element like a company. Do you have anything specifically that you look with your team in this definition that you have said, relentless ability to purchase or to go and fight for the business model that they are proposing in their pitch? Is there anything that you have discovered so far?
So just to be clear on the question you're asking, if there's anything that we discover when we meet founders around their ability to showcase that perfection?
Yes, their attitude, that an element that is manifesting to you their relentless ability to fight for their pitch as a behavior, mindset.
Yeah, well, it's absolutely. So we've had examples where you could see the grit and the resilience and the tenacity of a founder by challenging them sometimes. And I think it's important to do that when you meet with a founder, because of course a founder is always going to paint a very rosy picture when they meet with you and try to promise you the moon and the stars and everything else that you're asking for, right? And it's easy to do when you're coming in so early and to try to get people excited by their vision. And our job, of course, is to play the devil's advocate and to really challenge the founder in the strongest way possible, and to really see if, will they take no for an answer, or will they continue to persevere no matter what? And to me, that is something, that is a signal that I do look for. I do recall once I was in New York and there was this founder that desperately wanted to meet with me at any cost. And I kept pushing him off because, it was a company that is in the mobility space and I had some doubts around that. And, we've had one call prior and I was saying, listen, I'm really sorry, but got to head to the airport. I won't have time to meet with you on this trip, but, let's stay in touch and meet next time, which is a very common thing to say and to hear in the business world. And I'd say the vast majority of founders would be like, what, absolutely, with pleasure. Please let me know next time you're in New York. I'd love to meet. Not these guys. These guys said, you know what? Why don't we drive you to the airport and do the pitch while we drive? We could come with you on the Uber. Um, and they basically give you an option to say no. And I appreciated that. I said, you know what? That's pretty cool. You guys really want the business. You guys are really hungry and you're not taking no for an answer. And that shows me that you have a certain level of tenacity and grit that I do look for in founders. And so I did take a meeting in the end, and I didn't take it in the taxi, but I took the time to meet them in the hotel, at the lobby. And just to show you, sometimes you do need to challenge the founders, right? You need to um, see how they react when you say no, how they react when you give them that rejection. And again, if it's a no, it's a no. It's not that, but if you find that there is something interesting, I think it's still healthy to um, uh, throw some challenges their way and see how they behave and they react, because that's the ultimate test. And again, nothing is perfect, right? I always say that, you really truly get to know the team and the business typically after you write the check and once you sit on the board, and that's when all the true colors kind of come out. Um, but you can get a certain sense by with character judgment at the onset, if you know what type of questions to ask and how to challenge them in the right way to get the outcome that you're looking
I love it. And it recalls me the same traits that I am looking when athletes they are stepping into my gym. When they want to become agonist, they want to become professional. That is not anymore the dilettante or the amateur mindset. This is what you do, whatever the cost it is. And this weekend I was to do another stage with my guys here doing jiu-jitsu. And I came back home, I guess, with 2 broken ribs, but this doesn't stop me. And there it was another sensei that he was 8th dan of judo, and he's 63. And in 2 weeks has to go and undergoing a surgery to replace the second hip. But he was on the tatami teaching people. So there is a sort of spark of foolishness that I believe is the real stuff that are describing founders that they have the unicorns DNA or professional athletes. And I guess it's something that you can sniff, at least is tangible for us, isn't it?
I would say absolutely. There is something that you could sniff. But I think that, it also depends on there's the character of the founders, and it's also, you could tell it by the way they structure the company and the organizations, right? And so I think that some companies could kind of close the gap to perfection um, by adopting certain standards really early on into their journey, right? So, for example, we talk a lot about software, but there needs to be a very high engineering standard when it comes to software. When it comes to AI, a lot of it could be replicated. So, are they
Okay.
hiring operators with engineering rigor? Are they bringing in talent from high stakes domain like aerospace or robotics or advanced manufacturing? Um, is there really a culture of craftsmanship, right? And so really that's I think ways where you could look for the unicorns of tomorrow by looking at essentially how their companies is closing the gap to remove any imperfection, because I think at the end of the day, um, what is really important is the precision in engineering, and you use the example often with Formula One or um, excellence is non-negotiable, and I think that
Nope.
tolerances are measured in microns, right? And you know this very well with F1. a millisecond could make it or break it. And I think very similarly in a startup as well. So those feedback loops and the relentless iteration is also a very key component in an ingredient of building a future unicorn.
I totally agree. And I love that you brought this topic to light, especially because you know how much I love Formula One and MotoGP and motorsport in general.
I know. And Formula One is coming to our town very soon. So we're
Yeah.
getting prepared mentally.
Yeah, it will be in Canada soon. I was in Miami a few days ago. So, but yeah, the point you see here is a point that you touch with a fantastic word that is craftsmanship. How you measure craftsmanship? A lot of leaders out there, let's say this. We got lucky and we found the perfect founder, a founder that has the trait of somebody stoic and relentless that fights for their pitch. And they chase you until they get founded and then get and do business. But then you look at how they structure their organization and they can replicate the best leadership models that we have out there nowadays. But then you go to the operational layer and you see if they rely on something that is a best practice or something that is hype. And a lot of organizations out there, they don't know really how good look like, how real software engineering is really built on top of what. And it's funny because you said it so beautifully as an investor, is the best of all the engineering that we have out there. Because software at the end, if you are an engineer, you have to mimic the other fields. Probably with AI, what I would like to understand with you is we need also to go beyond it with some ethic, because I believe the software can create some social behaviors that, like in social network, we need to be really careful about. And so in the investment that you do, because you have talked about this last startup where you have big players that they know how software engineering is built. But in a startup that you don't have this luxury and you have investors baking them with money, how can you understand if they are doing it properly? Do you have a tool?
Well, it's yeah, of course. I mean, that's a great question. So you're right that, some of the startups that we look at backed by, some really big former unicorn tech founders. We're looking at a company right now actually that was actually co-founded by one of the co-founders of Apple. And so you do see that they have, they've learned from how that was done and how you've built those types of businesses. But I would say that what you really want to be looking for when it comes to these things is, I'd say startups can foster resilience. I'd say in really three ways. I would say agility over rigidity, right? So I think that's important to have this ability to pivot quickly based on market shifts and customer feedback. So I think the companies that could do it really, really well, finding emerging trends is really essential. I mean, we know many examples of companies that started off, with something completely different. I mean, Netflix started by selling DVDs, and then they've, obviously had they continued only on selling DVDs, Netflix would not be Netflix today. And you have so many of these examples, right? So I think understanding the market and having this sense, this almost instinct, and to stay, to be able to pivot and to stay lean and to experiment often, and to be really willing and to rethink assumptions when necessary. I think is absolutely key if you really want to succeed. And we've seen this time and time again. So I think this agility piece is something that I think is important. Mission-driven innovation is another one. So not necessarily chasing trends and hypes, as you say, because these hypes could easily explode. We saw so many of these in the .com era as well, where people were just getting funded for any you just had a .com after your name and you would get money your way. And you have crazy stories of people with just an idea getting funded, over a weekend in a basement, so something crazy, right? But we're not, of course, we're far from that era. But building startups that don't just chase trends, but they solve real urgent problems, right, with a clear purpose. And ensuring that the solution is creating lasting value for customers and even society. So that sustainability over the long run, I think, is going to help also preserve. Um, and then I think the other thing we need to look at as well is, the capital efficiency. I think that growth at all costs is no longer the game that, it was the case a few years ago, but I think right now, sustainable scalability, optimizing unit economics early, um, that will help you really strengthen your competitive edge, particularly if you go through periods of drought where it's going to be harder to raise capital. I think those that are going to really outperform are those capital efficient plays. So I think those are kind of the three elements that we look for. Um, and to get more comfort around the businesses that we back.
It's beautiful what are the three components that you just highlighted, because it recalls to me the three stuff that we are absolutely observing as the cornerstone of a unicorn. That is the first, that is the mission driven with purpose. So if you don't have an organization that is clear in their DNA what they do and why they do it, they cannot onboard the right people. So, and this was an interesting discussion I had with another investor that is a behavioral expert, Pedro. And also his observation was, without purpose, people are simply disengaged. It's a recipe of long-term disengagement. And this is really interesting. And we will get about this with you soon. Then the second piece also is related to the OKR, how you can transfer when the organization is growing this mindset and the purpose to the company if you don't have the proper system to align people in the right direction. But the last point is the most intriguing one, because it's then how people are behaving and interacting between them when the organization is scaling. How do you help them to stay focused on the target? How do you help them to work in the proper way? And this is an interesting aspect that brings to me all the time and the behavioral excellence of F1 and technical craftsmanship. So a lot of organizations out there, they really don't know how software is built. And this is intriguing. And because of this, how can we get the right talents in our organization if we don't know who we need to intake? So this to me relies all on the concept of a human-driven organization, when the real asset of a unicorn are the people that are building it. So it's a philosophical question, I guess, this one. How can we as founder then, that is the next layer of building a unicorn, onboard people that are really sharing our DNA? Do you
Yeah.
have a suggestion for these founders out there?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, that would really be ensuring that people are sharing in the values, and they're very mission driven, and they're very excited by what they're building. I think that is really important, is to have this type of alignment around the purpose, and that's really what's going to motivate everyone to be rowing in the same direction and to achieve excellence. And so these are all a lot of non-tangibles, but when and where we see a lot of this. I mean, one of the companies we recently backed, we saw a perfect example of that, where they essentially got the brightest minds of Silicon Valley, from the top firms, and they all left their respective firms because the
Mhm.
founder and CEO was able to draw them in behind the mission and behind what they're building, and they decided to leave very comfortable positions from top firms to go collectively work towards building something that is going to change the world. And that is very powerful. And that power is unstoppable. And so
Yep.
when you see that, this to us gives us comfort to be able to back them, because we sense that they're not doing this for a 9 to 5 paycheck job. They're doing this because they want to change the world, and they're rallied behind this mission in an incredible way. And so that energy and that power is hard to find, but when you do, it certainly ensures that you're working with the right team, with the right dynamics, and they will most certainly achieve excellence with the right execution.
I love this because it recalls to me exactly the hiring campaign of the army. So working with my gym with a lot of people that comes from the army, this is exactly what a soldier look like. I mean, they put their life at the service of a country, whatever the country it is. A mission could be the police, could be the SWAT team, could be whatever. And they search for the right people with the right mindset. And then they train them to become the best of the best in their field. And so it's funny to see how, and this is something that I want to double check with you. From the data that I have, all the most powerful startups that have disrupted the market have a very clear disruptive mission. Or everybody was aligned to the mission with the purpose. And then the company was building on site sort of farms, talent pool creation, that they were teaching people about the technical mastery that they were looking to build or to embrace. And this is, to me, exactly how a special team in the army is working. Is this something that you have observed also in these 12 unicorns and in all the unicorns that you and your team have worked with?
Absolutely, yeah. I would say yes for the most part. I mean, building a culture of excellence, I think, is absolutely, I'd say, very much key. Um, the other thing that I would mention is, yeah, a bit like a soldier. I mean, um, you're just extremely driven to achieve that goal, and you really need to put the right incentives in place, of course, so that everyone does achieve those goals. But it could be absolutely transformational. Um, Another example that I could share, and I love to share with stories because I think that's really,
Yep.
but this is a story of a cybersecurity company that was early in its days, and they were trying to attract the top talent. But often, these startups don't have the financial means. And what better way to incentivize everyone than by offering them, warrants and shares and founders' shares, so that if there is that big success and that big exit, um, that will be completely transformational and rewarding financially. Um, and what's interesting is that people do take the sacrifice and they leave, comfortable positions at Apple or at Google or to join this company. And I know one in particular, a personal friend of mine, and they took the leap of faith. They left a very comfortable job for a much lower salary, but they got a lot of shares. And when the IPO happened, that day was completely transformational. Everybody on that founding team, were it's more than winning the lottery, right? We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars of personal profit, and so um, that's again a great example of building a culture of alignment where everybody is like a soldier, extremely laser focused on achieving an attainable goal. But a lot of that is also because of the way that the incentives were structured internally at the team that made it in such a way. So I think the incentivization is really important as well. People need to really see the big picture, but also see the big reward down the line. And people can make transformational things happen with the right frame of mind, the right culture, and the right incentives.
That indeed resembles how you build a perfect SWAT team or a sales team. And this analogy is really intriguing because we can search and find something, for instance, about the selection process of a sale analysis. They undergo buds, and we know that there are some amount of weeks training and then the selection process, and the early weeks, they are pretty tough. We know roughly, especially if you read the books like Goggins' book, which are the steps roughly of which are the challenges. But then, what do we know about how they train a Navy SEAL or another special unit? Almost nothing. And this is the cash that I got from the market. The market loves to sell stuff. So the market sells what I call hype. But then, how can we ensure that an organization is not purchasing hype, but is able to grow and scale with technical excellence? Because we understood with you is one of the core tenets where a unicorn can be built, or where a good organization can be constructed with solid foundation. Because I see a lot of organizations out there that they don't know what the training program or the upskilling program that they have to build in their company looks like. So they purchase hype from the market, thinking to get a Navy SEALs in their company, but they are not getting it. Is something that you are observing, or is only me because I'm too much deeper into martial art and training soldiers?
Mm. No, I think it's important to look for certain measures of excellence. As you say, I think that measuring, again, measuring craftsmanship, measuring excellence, particularly in domains like software or tech innovation, I think it goes beyond your traditional KPIs, and it's not always about what gets done, but I think it's how it's done. And so, if you want to assess and quantify it, because I think it's important to quantify it. I really think that this game
Mm-hmm.
is both what could be quantified and what could be qualified, and I think the genius and the secret sauce is meshing both. But on the qualitative side of things, you do need to understand precision versus consistency. And so we need to understand how consistent are things around systems. Is there a uniform design and architecture principles? We need to understand the thoughtfulness in problem solving. So we want to understand the simplicity of the solutions, the number of iterations that is required to be done. I would say the speed of onboarding, right? Or how easy is it for new team members to grasp, and essentially build a scorecard around it. So I think that there's ways that one could really, find a quantitative way to ensure that there is excellence in the team, uh, and there is certainly ways to measure it to ensure that excellence.
I love this idea of finding the quantitative way to measure the qualitative way. That is something intriguing that you are bringing to the board. I love it. We have unpacked so many stuff in 30 minutes of discussion that is amazing. So let's have a recap, because from what is emerging, it's clear that there are traits that are not only financial, but that are not only technical, but are also behavioral. We need to look for people that they have some personality traits, that they are able to lead a company through purpose, that they are able to onboard people that share the same DNA, vision, and purpose, and then to create a upskilling, a talent development program inside the organization to elevate their qualitative. We can build a new word, I guess. The quality measurement around the quantitative stuff that they are bringing with the quality, and intersecting everything together in order to get a holistic measurement about what they are delivering to the market. Now, the point, I guess, is more intriguing. How we ensure that this can sustain a growth that for a company that is hitting the market with the right product cannot be any more linear, but maybe hyperbolic with hypergrowth. How can we help organization to onboard people in an hyperbolic growth with the right behavior, organizational behavior, without collapsing under bureaucracy or their own idea of quality and technical excellence? Because I guess this is something that you observe in 12 Unicorn.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think it's important to look for organizations that foster culture where calculated risks and bold ideas are celebrated. So encourage teams to challenge status quo, to fail fast and to learn faster. That's what we look for in companies. I think that a lot of organizations really focus on getting things done rather than reinventing how things are done. And so prioritizing that innovation and giving those teams a certain level of autonomy to really push boundaries I think that speaks for itself, right? And so um, the other thing we like to see is cross-disciplinary collaboration. And I think that true breakthrough does happen when teams break down silos and bring different ideas together. Um, so really that open communication, the shared problem solving. So if we come into a company and everyone's kind of, he's working on the engineering, he's working on the product development, and if everything is kind of siloed, that typically is not a good sign for us, right? We want to be seeing
Mhm.
that there is, um, a lot of minds that are kind of getting meshed together. Um, so I think it's important for organizations that that could define bold mission-driven vision, that they align incentives, and that will give us really that sustainable growth, and then really getting that mindset from relentless adaptability. World is evolving fast. I think that companies that embrace constant reinvention are going to be the ones that will thrive.
That is beautiful, that the picture that you are helping us to draw on the canvas is an organization that is really agile, so lean, using agility in the right way, that has to break the silos in the growth process so that they have to embrace DevOps properly, but the DevOps mindset, not the tooling. And also they have to bring in the picture the craftsmanship through a talent pool that has to be pharma inside the company. This is exactly what we are observing with the research. And this is beautiful because you see, if you do something like this, your team with 12 engineers, that is roughly one team that is performing in the proper way, can outperform an organization in silos of 100 developers. So in the unicorns that you have worked with, how many engineers did you see in the organization in the growth phase? Were they onboarding a lot of people because it was an hyperbolic growth, or they were instead improving and upskilling the people with the right talent, so quality over quantity? Because I see a lot of organizations that are taking a lot of people in the hyperbolic growth, and then they collapse like a cake in the oven, and you open it and there's poof.
Yeah, no, it's something tricky. I mean, we do see that sometimes where companies hire these large engineering teams because they really want to be develop something really quickly and with a lot of speed and scale. But the risk to that is that you increase your burn rate really significantly, and and if you don't hit your milestone, you're going to crater, as you mentioned, right? And so that could pose a massive risk. So I think that it's a lot more sustainable to be able to um, really work on, rather than having a large engineering teams, smaller engineering teams, but ones that are really of very high quality, very strong expertise, that bring a very important skill set to the organization, um, and showing that there's not a duplication of efforts. I understand the reason why often organizations are appealed by the idea of building those large engineering teams because they feel like that's going to give them that competitive edge. But it's a double-edged sword, and that's how. Um, so I think it's really important to be very mindful of your burn rate, and I think growth at all costs. I mean, especially in this environment, we're in a very different environment, and that's where you see billion-dollar companies actually go back down to zero. Why does that happen? Because everybody's striving to hit that unicorn status, but let's not be fooled. I mean, businesses that hit $1 billion and $5 billion and $10 billion exits, but there are others that do hit the $1 billion valuation and then get back down to zero. And we've seen a few examples of these. Staying lean, staying focused. Yeah, I would definitely choose quality over quantity when it comes to this.
That again is exactly what also special ops they are doing. So a team that is a team of special ops is a small team, highly structured with very high standard in communication, in training, and in behavior. Because at the end, and this is the beautiful part of behavioral engineering, if you get imposter in your organization, when the organization will start to undergo the stress moment because they are not hitting the milestones, people, they will show their true nature. And if you onboarded an imposter, the imposter will show who was behind the mask. And when you have on board a lot of imposters, then you have an organization that instead of moving in the right direction is drifted in multiple scattered directions. And this is an intriguing concept because it's again quantity versus quality. And we understood again quality wins. And a board that is not able to understand this typically gets stuck. And when the board starts to get stuck, you have this conflict between investor and leadership. And what we observe is typically that the people in the organization, they start to suffer. And we start to have disengagement. And this is the moment where the organization stops to grow. And let's say, if they are lucky, they stop in the mediocrity environment. If they are even unlucky, they collapse. Okay. Is burnout something that you have a recipe to fight? Because it starts to be a common issue out there in the market, I would say, in the world, due to the political situation.
Yeah, we we actually are facing one right now with one of our portfolio companies, where it's becoming an issue, and I think that it's a little bit of a fine line, how to really deal with it. I would say the way we're dealing with it, and again, this is obviously the field of psychology, which is I cannot pretend to be an expert in this domain, but we do the best that we can. We are in a human business, and we are in the people business. And often you could easily hit a burnout when you're pushing extremely hard and you're not achieving your targets. You're a lot of these founders working tirelessly day and night, weekends and weekdays. And it's great when things go in the right direction, but when they don't, you could easily hit a burnout, and that could ripple throughout the team as well, especially if it starts and emanates from the leadership. In these types of instances, I think it's important to be as supportive as possible and to see how we could unload some of the tasks to make it easier for them, and to make them feel that they have the support. I think is really important. To also make them feel that there's a certain level of accountability. Like, you're not just running your own business; you have investors that are partners of your business as well. And if culturally in the team there's a high level of burnout for a variety of reasons, we as partners will see if we could offset that or mitigate that or reduce it, by showing optimism, by showing support, finding solutions, by offloading some of the tasks if we can. There's ways to get creative. I was even thinking or looking at potential ways to bring in a new co-CEO or a new co-founder. The organizations that have co-founder for hire, or just bringing in new leadership to the team. I mean, as a board member, this is something that we could do. Say, you know what, like, and sometimes a new leadership will bring in, a new mindset and a fresh, fresh wind to the organization that could have an impact. Um, us humans, we're very prone to habits, and sometimes some very minor changes could really change results. And we all know the exercises or the studies that were done with factory workers where they changed the lighting a little bit and productivity would change, right? So,
Mhm.
very minor sometimes changes could really go very far in organizations. So these are the kinds of things that we try to lever and leverage and play around with when the time is necessary. But I would tell you, I mean, listen, this is not an easy task. Burnout is something that we are seeing often, and um, it cannot be taken lightly either. It is a mental health issue. So I think that being as supportive as we can, and trying to just be true partners to the businesses is really the best that we could do.
I have a question as a follow up, because what you were discussing touched some chords in myself. Had the unpleasant reality of facing 2 cancers and 41 surgeries in my life. But what helped me to get again on the tatami to fight and to being able to do what I do, of course, was the love for my family and my kids. but also with the help of a coach. And I don't see that many leadership that are taking seriously coaching. What do you think about leadership and especially coaching for leadership? That could be not only the always life coaching or growth coaching, but something more neuroscience or behavioral coaching.
I think it's important to find the right coach, but I do think when you do have the right coach, it could be transformational because they could we're in life we are so tunnel visioned in the way that we work. We you know as a founder we're pushing really hard. We're really so laser focused on a goal, and we miss a lot of things on the peripheral vision that sometimes could be extremely important to our own success that is completely hidden in our blind spot. And I think that those leadership coaches could really bring that to light. NLP, for instance, is something that I personally have started exploring, and it's extremely interesting to see what is within us. What is the power that's within us that could be unleashed? And I think that they could really play a very integral role in unleashing that power. Um, as one of them once told me, bring your subconscious to the driver's seat, and you will be amazed by
Yep.
the magic that could happen. Amazed. And so, to me, this is again something that's relatively new that I'm exploring with great interest. But I think with deep conviction could make a massive difference.
Yes, as I see it personally, burnout is like you have your battery depleted of energy. But with the right coach, with the right behavioral drills, let's call routine or habits, you can refill your battery every day instead of depleting the energy every time. This is an important stuff that I'm always careful to discuss with leadership. And looking at your reply, it seems that yes, it's something that you have discovered as well, and I love it. Now the time is passing too fast, I guess. Do you have anything else that do you want to share with our digital warriors? Any other story or prediction or experience, whatever you would like to bring to the table? Because otherwise, I can stay here to talk with you for hours.
Yeah, no, I think to summarize the conversation that we have today, I think that there's one piece of advice that I could offer founders and leaders that are trying to navigate the challenges is that relentless execution beats perfect strategy, right? Um, you take some examples like WhatsApp, which was actually status update, or even YouTube. YouTube started off as a dating website. Um, and people forget that, right? Instagram
Yep.
started off as a location app, right? And look at what these companies have evolved into, right? These multi-billion dollar companies, precisely because they had that relentless execution. And, the winners are those who adapt, those who iterate, those that move fast. So, really prioritizing speed over perfection and data over assumptions and action over hesitation. I think it's important not to fear failure, but to really build a culture that embraces change, stay obsessed with solving real problems, and uh, you will have what it takes to hit unicorn status. So, Michele, I wanted to thank you for today. Really enjoyed sharing some thoughts with you, um, and
Thank you
looking
to
forward to
you.
continuing these conversations.
Yes, I guess we need to continue it because today we have unpacked a lot of information. I need to watch the recording, I guess, as well, 2 times to get the notes of all the stuff that we have discussed. In the future, I would like to have also more discussion with you because I'm pretty sure the company that you have onboarded now, they are new unicorns, and I would like to understand with you better in the future how in the age of AI you were able to build new unicorns, not chasing the hype, but creating new unicorns, leveraging the new technology that is AI. And this is a beautiful topic that I will to discuss with you. Also because I didn't mention, and sorry for that, that you have a special focus on companies that have a green topic to bring to the world. So this is something, my opinion, that in the future will be a major factor of success, because looking at the energy demand of the data center for the crypto, Web3, and AI, having green energy, it could be, and in my opinion, it will be the tool that democratizes the world. Because imagine a world where energy is in abundance and not in scarcity. We don't have a third world anymore because everybody will be with the energy to do new stuff and find a new way to bring the new technology to everybody. And this, I guess, is something that with you in the future, I would love to discuss. What do you think?
I would be delighted to, and that's very much on point with what we do on a day-to-day. So leveraging AI to build, to solve real-world problems is part of our DNA.
Good. So we not only found who is hunting for unicorns, but we found somebody that is using the technology in the right way instead of purchasing it to follow only the hype. Meir, it was a true pleasure to have you here, and talk to you soon.
Thank you, Michelle. Looking forward to it. Thanks for having me today.
It was a pleasure. And Digital Warrior, please smash your comment below and subscribe, and see you in the next episode. Bye.
Thanks for listening, and please remember to subscribe to the Forge of Unicorns to stay up to date with our latest episodes.